Hello, I made a video concentrating in great part upon the Chevalier d'Eon, who was a Frenchman living in London who dressed as a woman for most of his adult life. He was in his 20s when he told everyone he was really a woman, not a man. He was a brave man, a soldier, a decorated soldier, and a diplomat too, which is how he ended up in London as a representative of the French court. But obviously he had a few problems being a man. Now, that was in the previous video, so if you want to know more about him, watch the other video. Obviously, until quite recently, it was not possible to change your gender to look like, to resemble the other gender, whichever one it is. But there are, of course, many documented cases throughout history of men preferring to be women and dressing and living as women, and of course there are also cases of women dressing as men and living as men. In a genuine case of gender confusion, or what's called gender dysphoria now, the victim of that unusual condition, and it is unusual, is deserving of sympathy, understanding, where necessary help, and cooperation. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that this is not a common way for people to act. And it has been, up to very, very recently, extremely rare. For obvious reasons. If it were more common, the human race would have just petered out, wouldn't it? Some time ago. However, now we have the technology and the methodology, and more to the point, the money, because this is something that came out of affluence. I'll get to that in a minute. We have the money, and since there's always been a significant proportion of the medical establishment, I'm not saying all of them, but there is a good chunk who are tempted by the prospect of a bit of lucrative work and the chance to play God and possibly to experiment. So suddenly there's an outburst of gender dysphoric children populating our Western world, and notice it is only the Western world. And seeing what's going on with mad Munchausen parents pushing their kids into gender-specific roles, and clothing and even surgery, which is being encouraged by certain members of the medical profession, and I'm not going to call them doctors because, in my opinion, they don't deserve that title. Seeing that, it reminded me of what happened to Rosemary Kennedy. She was the oldest daughter of Joseph Kennedy Sr. and Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, his wife, and she was the oldest child and the older sister of John Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy and all the rest of them. There was too many for me to remember. It turns out that was her first child. When Rose Kennedy went into labour, she had the best possible medical care, of course, and instead of going into a public hospital, she had the baby at home. And it turned out the doctor was not available when she went into labour, and the nurse, the best nurse available, obviously, attempted to slow down the birth by keeping the mother's legs together. This deprived the baby of oxygen and caused brain damage, which became apparent while Rosemary was a child. She had epileptic attacks and mood swings. However, she could function in a way. She could converse normally. She couldn't read too well, but she could appear reasonably sociable in company. She could be taken out to dances. But her willfulness and her erratic behaviour worried her parents, who were very concerned about their social standing and were afraid that she might one day just sneak away and meet some man and get herself pregnant. And it turned out the latest medical fad was an operation called a prefrontal lobotomy, in which part of the front of the brain was destroyed. It was sliced into. And this was semi-experimental, but doctors were very happy to do this because this was the brave new world of medical technology. And her rich parents had the money. So, with the encouragement, that's all right, with the encouragement of the medical profession, Joseph Kennedy, actually without the permission of his wife, Joseph Kennedy decided this was the way to go. Sent his oldest child into the care of these doctors, and then the operation left her with the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. She was thereafter unable to communicate intelligibly and incontinent, and she had also forgotten how to walk, although it took her about 20 years and she had learned how to walk again, but with a limp. She was institutionalized by her family. They gave her the best of care because they had the best of money, and she was well looked after and isolated and living in a sort of twilight world until she died at the age of 86 in an institution in Wisconsin. Nowadays, with our prosperous societies, there's a chance to dabble in even more expensive and doubtful medical procedures. And there are children being mutilated by their proud, rich parents who've decided they can, Munchausen by proxy and turn girls into boys and boys into girls. Of course, the fact that a girl is a bit of a tomboy, we can't have that. We'll turn her into something resembling a boy. This boy's a little bit, he doesn't like football or rugby. He's bound to be a girl. Let's follow some expensive and protracted and painful medical procedures and turn this boy into what looks like a girl who has to have constant medical attention and injections for the rest of her life. This is a disease of too much money. They're damaging their children's bodies in dreadful ways, and like the Kennedys, storing up trouble for them to the ends of their lives when they're far too young to understand what is being done to them. And, I think the doctors are irresponsible. They're carried away. The social justice warriors who support this are murderous. They are killing these children. They're killing their souls. And I'm not using the soul in a religious sense. And those parents, they should be jailed. Look, we say parents should be jailed for female genital mutilation, don't we? Well, what is putting your child through a series of operations to change the shape of his or her sexual organs, if not genital mutilation? And of course they'll be sterile. When they grow up, they'll discover they can't have children. Dreadful, dreadful thing. Okay, well, if you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.